Welcome to Alter. I'm your host, Nicole Moline. This podcast explores the practice of transformation as a conversation between hustle and flow. Altering, changing, growing, becoming, and altering, offering, surrendering, opening to divine conspiracy. It's the dance of the leader, athlete, artist, entrepreneur, committed not just to optimal expression, but to exceptional being. So here are adventures in alignment and conspiracy, awake to all the grit, dirt, and complexity of our world, alert to the graces that come alongside the struggle, the hustle, a cocktail of soul food, new rhythms, and street wisdom, encouragement, an infusion of courage for the moments you need it most. I'm your host, Nicole Moline. Let's alter together. Happy holiday season, y'all. Do you know where the word holiday comes from? It's Old English for holy day, the season of holy days. Not the season of exhaustion and over-shopping, overeating, over-drinking. Holy days, days we honor to honor an entire past year and what's sacred to us. Have you ever gotten to the end of a year, a month, or a week, and you look back and it's just a blur? You're not really sure what happened, what mattered. All of a sudden, it's Friday, or the night before your birthday, or it's New Year's Eve. I have. And it's a combination of a lack of reflection and intention. A couple years ago, I led a course, an online communal journey called Oath. I'm launching a fresh version of it soon, so stay tuned. And in the last module called Become, we crafted sankalpas, which is a Sanskrit word for a statement of purpose for the current season of our lives. We talked about designing a path toward our dreams and what we want to create. I sketched out some categories of how I wanted to think about my days, how I wanted to plan and also be able to flow with the unexpected and pay attention to how grace is invading. That was the start of dreaming about crafting a planner to map transformation. I'd never really been able to find one that gave space for both intentionality and vision, but also acknowledges that so much of life, as we're exploring in this podcast, is about flow as much as hustle, is about the unexpected and how we dance with that, and how we practice recognizing the grace and the invitations and the opportunities that are coming to us in the unexpected, in the swerves of our lives. So after a year of designing and learning about bookmaking and more than I could have ever imagined that goes into it, I am so excited to announce the Alter Envision Planner is now available here in the world to inspire and guide you as you vision cast for this next year. It feels so amazing to have made a thing that's straight from my dreams to yours. I'll share more about it soon, but this episode on marking our days is brought to you by the Alter Envision Planner, now available at NicoleMoline.com. Onward and heartward. I live most of the time in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, the land of Hasids and hipsters. It's just over the Williamsburg Bridge from the East Village of Manhattan, and historically, it was a Hasidic Jewish neighborhood artists spilled into when they were priced out of the village, following the L train over the bridge. Still, no matter what time of year, Hasidic men walk the streets in huge circular fur hats that look kind of like lampshades. They even have special cut raincoats to fit the hats. Girls run around in matching homemade dresses. Lots of minivans and these fabulous communal courtyards in between buildings shared by mostly Hasidic families with toys and tricycles strewn all over. When I go for a run on a hot day in shorts, no Hasidic man I cross on the street will acknowledge me. Literally the opposite of a catcall, which is maybe its own kind of inhumanity. Another conversation for another time. But one thing I love about living near this community is the way it marks time, particularly Sabbath. Every Friday night, a siren sounds through the whole neighborhood, half an hour before sunset, reminding everyone it's time to get home. Sabbath is about to begin. It rings again, loud as an air raid alarm, right at sunset. And if I can, one of my favorite things to do is walk down to the East River waterfront for sunset, seeing all the flickering candles in the windows as families gather for Shabbat dinner. Or, if it's cold and I'm home, light a candle, sing a blessing of my own over the past week. As Bon Iver sings, math ahead, math behind, an accounting of the days. My mom believed in memorizing good words, beautiful, true words, getting them into your system, living alongside of them, metabolizing them, having them for life. The first verse she ever taught me is a scripture from the poetic book of Psalms, this ancient collection of prayers and praises to and tirades against God. I can remember reciting it with her in a huff, rolling my eyes in the car on the way somewhere. I'd say it something like this. So teach us to number our gaze so we may gain a heart of wisdom. Here's the thing, mom and dads. I still remember it. One of my favorite definitions of meditation is to chew the cud, which literally means to spew up. A description of how cows digest their food with their complicated series of stomachs. Where am I going with this? It's actually a powerful metaphor of digesting something, a thought, a belief, an affirmation, a truth, a statement of wisdom, of letting it metabolize, integrate, become part of you. Even though I was annoyed by repeating it, that verse crept its way into my consciousness. Reciting that verse on car rides, my mom made an ordinary ceremony, a ritual, about the importance of ceremony. So teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Lots of ways to unpack the meaning of those words, but one way is that there's a connection between numbering our days, marking them, noting them, being present to the season we're in, and becoming wise. Celebration or ceremony and ritual helps us do that. It's a way of marking the days. Does the idea of ritual make you roll your eyes? Maybe you think of yourself as a productivity superhero, and time spent making something sacred feels like a waste. You value data and measurable outcomes. Or maybe you think of yourself as a creative, and the idea of routine or repeated practice feels like it would constrain spontaneous creativity or freedom. I'm in both of these camps in different ways. I'm a spirit-curious, God-hungry skeptic with performance goals and an artist who wants to go wherever the world takes me. But here's some surprising paradoxes. Structure nurtures creativity. Boundaries protect freedom. Ritual invites wonder. What do I mean? If you're staring at an infinite blank canvas with absolutely no direction, no rules, no limitations, that immensity of possibility is paralyzing. The minute a parameter is introduced, it gives your mind, your spirit, something to work with. You can only use charcoal or watercolors or any shade of blue. Or the canvas is a tiny 8 inches by 8 inches or 280 characters or 45 minutes long or only on a stationary bike or in response to a theme of adventure. You get the idea. Guidelines set us free. They give us something to work with, something to bounce off against. Morning routines or outfit uniforms right now are all the rage, and for good reason, because they give us less to think about. If I'm wondering about what to eat or when to work out or what to wear, that is what I'm thinking about. Those are the decisions I'm wrestling with, rather than setting my imagination free to work on what I want to create. Sometimes your outfit or a meal or a particular funky workout is what you want to create, and that's great. But sometimes we waste imaginative energy on decisions we could automate instead of forming habits or practices around them to free up our focus for other points. A surprising number of the most successful artists are incredibly rigorous in their habits around creativity, writing or painting or creating at the same time for the same number of hours every day, or producing a certain word count every day, regardless of how good the writing is. That's just the rule. Or a new song chorus every morning, regardless of how good. Or a yoga practice of the same warm-up sequence every time. Or even the tradition of Kundalini yoga kriyas, low-impact repetitive movements for an uncomfortably long time to give the brain something to focus on so you can drop into the heart. One of my favorite and most freeing examples of this, I've heard it from writers, artists, creators of all different types, is that they have an appointment with themselves to show up to their craft for X amount of time or at X time every day. So maybe it's 7 a.m., 7 to 9 a.m. every morning, or whatever time it might be. And the best part, and I've heard this from so many creators, is that is the only requirement. They might stare out the window for those entire 2 hours, but they've shown up to the work. And they're teaching their subconscious that this is what we do. So maybe those 2 hours are spent staring out the window, and any creator will tell you that is maybe the most significant creative act in the whole arc of a creation, right? That time to just let your mind wander with an intentional point of focus about what you're there to create. You don't know what shape it's going to take. You don't know what the story is going to be about. You don't know the shape of the song, the melody, but you're showing up for it. The muse likes to be able to count on us to show up regularly at the same time and light the candles and spread the table or the canvas or the yoga mat. She's like that. High standards. The novelist Nabokov said, I love this, be rigorous in your habit, so furious with your art. So there's something about that structure and discipline and routine around all the tasks surrounding creativity that actually allows for furious imaginativity. So when you no longer have to think about what you eat every time you sit down, or what time you're going to sit down, or how often you're going to show up to create during a week, when you put all of that out of your mental landscape and energy, you suddenly have bandwidth that knows, look, this is what we're doing. We show up at this time. We show up in this place to create. We often think of creativity as spontaneous, unpredictable miracle, but it's something we cultivate, something we become. We become creators by letting our mind and body know we show up regularly to do this thing. Different religious traditions around the world have some kind of beaded necklace or string to serve as a structure for prayer. We see this across so many traditions. Mala beads or a rosary. Think about it. There's nothing more ethereal and infinite than a conversation with God. And yet monks have always understood that it's best served by a structure of physically repeating something, an embodied ritual, fingers gliding over the wooden grain or glass of a round bead, ushers us, our imagination, our spirit, into a repetitive spiritual practice of not so much praying, but becoming prayer. Because this is what I do. This is the thing that I practice. What we repeat, we strengthen. What we repeat, we strengthen. Anna Forrest is this fierce yogi, modern medicine woman and sage. A few years ago, she came out with her book, Fierce Medicine, Breakthrough Practices to Heal the Body and Ignite the Spirit. And by the way, this book is an amazing memoir of her life, which is an incredible story of transformation and unlikely wisdom, unlikely healing. So I can't recommend it highly enough. She writes, "You have to do something 200 times before the fear will disperse." I just got to say that again. You have to do something 200 times before the fear will disperse. So I love that idea of courage as a practice. Courage as in the same way that you lift weights and over time, and it takes a lot of reps and a lot of consistency, you grow strong. In the same way, you feel fear, you show up in the midst of it in honor of your dreams, in honor of your belief, fully feeling that fear. And you expect to do that many times over. You expect to feel afraid many times over, and you keep showing up and you keep showing up and you keep showing up. And over time, you become courageous. The fear starts to disperse. It starts to get displaced. New research in neuroscience confirms this whole idea. We are creatures of habit. We are shaped by the practices that we choose to make second nature. The word for that is neuroplasticity. So our ability to rewire our brains through intentional practices shows what you practice, you become. So ritual is less a rut and more a groove. In the way a good beat of a live jazz song becomes the backdrop or the lattice structure of improvisation. Once you've established rituals that pull you into a moment of presence and soulfulness, you will become more free to create. We can think of ritual as a chosen, well-worn pathway that becomes more and more of a home. And the safer we feel, the freer we feel. P.S. What if you applied that to a current romance or parental relationship to kids you're raising, right? Or again, to art that you're trying to create? The safer you both feel, the freer you feel. Ritual and ceremony make our relationships and family feel sacred and welcoming and safe. As my friend and joy guru, who I interviewed a few episodes ago, Dana Trixie Flynn, you have to look it up. She's straight magic. She says, magic takes guts. I love it. Magic doesn't usually happen by itself. It takes our collaboration, our intention. I love this song, Flagship by Jason Isbell. killer songwriter, which is about the intention a long haul romance requires, the continual magic making, the continual ceremony, the guts it requires to make magic.
Cowboy boots for $7 more. And I remember how you loved to see them shine. So I run upstairs to get a pair of mine.
That moment of remembering a partner loves you in shined boots. And so you run upstairs and you make an extra effort to get the boots shined.
And that boy you left in tears in his Corvette. You gotta try to keep yourself naive. And in spite of all the evidence, believe. And volunteer to lose touch with the world. And focus on one solitary girl.
And that line, you gotta try to keep yourself naive. And in spite of all the evidence, believe. There's something more. There's something always to be discovered because you are growing and your partner is growing, or you are growing and the child you're raising is growing. And the interplay between you can be wonder. Because there's constant mystery, there's constant discovery, there's constant new and deeper layers of experience between each other. And I love how this cover, Johnny Swim does, of Tom Petty's I Won't Back Down echoes this whole interplay between structure, commitment, discipline, and magic, love, creativity. So that kind of commitment, I won't back down. I won't back down. These are the things I have in sight. These are the things to which I am committed. These are the things to which I have made an oath. This is my sankalpa. This is my mission. This is my purpose. And because I'm so committed to that, I'm so clear on the vision, it can grow in so much freedom.
Stand my ground, and I won't back down. Hey, baby, there ain't no easy way out. Hey, I will stand my ground, and I won't back down.
I love what Krista Tippett says about ritual on her podcast, Becoming Wise, which if you are not subscribed to that, get on that ASAP. It is a modern ecumenical university course meets church service, spotlighting all the teachers that are so important in both their words and their actions to our moment. And for the most part, timeless voices as well, whose words and whose legacy is going to go on for so many years. Get on that. She says, rituals are sophisticated, ancient intelligence about the body. They are like physical corollaries to poetry, condensed, economical gestures that carry inordinate meaning and import. Rituals tether emotion in flesh and blood and bone and help release it. So rituals are like a shower for your body, right? They're a shower for your soul. So you go through a day, a week, a year, and you accumulate so much. And we all know, if you go a day or two without showering, you definitely feel like, I want to wash this stuff off, right? In the same way, a ritual can be this way of shedding skin, of moving through, of coming to understand what it is you're carrying and what you want to continue to carry and what you want to lay aside to bury in some way. Sophisticated, ancient intelligence about the body, about the fact that we live in flesh and blood and breath and bone and muscle and spirit in some mysterious cocktail of all of it. In part 2 of this episode, dropping in just a few days, I'm going to throw out some ideas about how to create ceremonies and rituals this holiday season that are really personal and authentic to you. Ways to make these holy days of celebration rather than mindless overexertion, overspending, overshopping, over all of it, right? But in the meantime, I encourage you to notice the routines of your daily life this week and ask yourself, how could I make these rituals rather than mindless routine? How could you transform your routine into ritual? Ask yourself, how can I become richly present to these things I do regularly? The Envision Planner, which I'm so excited to finally be able to offer you, was designed to inspire you in becoming more intentional, awake, and purposeful in your everyday life in light of where you're heading, what you're dreaming, what you want to build, what you want to create, and better practiced at responding in integrity and creativity to the way that your life swerves, responding in joy to the way that your life turns in unexpected directions, to practice proceeding as though all of it is sacred. So I hope you get your hands on one at NicoleMoline.com and start journeying through it. And even better, give one to a friend or maybe a partner or a kid who's starting to think about their future this holiday season, and use it as an excuse to sit down together and ask deep-end questions. I have so many of those woven throughout this planner. Use it as a guide for deepening your relationship, your friendship, and understanding each other's dreams and goals, and also how you can support and encourage each other along the way. I think that's what it looks like to alter together. A few announcements. Utah and California friends, I'm coming to Salt Lake City and Southern California in early December to lead altar workshops. It's going to be a blend of music-driven movement practice and guided meditation and journaling. We'll be moving through the brand new Integrate Year in Review workbook you can also get at NicoleMoline.com to reflect on the past year and envision what we want to create in 2020. And wherever you live, if you would love to host an altar workshop in your community, reach out to me and let's explore possibilities. I love connecting with you and catalyzing community through these workshops and retreats, and can't wait to see my California and Utah friends in a couple weeks. Speaking of retreats, there are 3 on the horizon for winter and spring of 2020. I've just announced, you ready? Tulum, which is a wonderland. It's Disneyland for yogis and a rustically luxe little town on the Mexican coast. It's one of my favorite places in the world. So Tulum, February 19th through 23rd, and Spring Breakthrough Retreat in Palm Springs for young women leaders over spring break, March 15th through 18th. I shared a vision for this retreat in my last podcast episode, Smoke Signals. And I'd love if you join or spread the word to an emerging leader who might be coming to mind. And Montana, May 30th through June 3rd. It is the 4th retreat I've led in Big Sky Country, and there's just no place like it. So the word I think of for this gathering is expanse. Get underneath these incredible big skies, into wilderness, into Yellowstone even, and discover the wild, the wilderness within. All the details and registration for retreats is at NicoleMoline.com/retreats, and they fill up quickly. So if you're inspired to join, don't delay. They are truly soulful adventures of a lifetime. Finally, a request right from my heart. If you're resonating with this podcast, please rate and leave a review for it on iTunes. It literally can take 15 seconds, but it would mean a lot. It would mean so much to me and to the podcast. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes so you don't miss an episode. It just drops right into your podcast feed, and all of the accompanying guided meditations that drop just days later. I read each one of the reviews that you leave, as well as your messages and episode shares. I love seeing screenshots of episodes that you share on social media. It's such a great way to spread the word. They mean the world to me, truly. And here's the magic. They actually help all of us find our people. They raise the podcast visibility in searches, which ultimately connects all of us to friends we haven't met yet. Because this is only worth doing if it's a real conversation, gritty and brave and vulnerable. I'd love to hear what kind of hope and vision, play, new ideas, new horizons it's stirring in you. You can connect with me at NicoleMoline.com or on social media at Nicole Moline, or via the Alter Together community at altertogether.com, where you can also find show notes and a playlist for this episode. My friends, happy holy days. Stay tuned for part 2 of this episode as we explore ceremonies and rituals that can open us to the magic of this season as we alter together.
This year I'm becoming my own home. This year I'm becoming my